Baker Mayfield just declared war on Kevin Stefanski, and the Cleveland Browns are in complete meltdown mode, all right. Buckle up, because what just went down in the NFL is absolutely bonkers. And I need you to understand that this isn't just your typical Twitter beef between a player and a coach. This is years of built-up resentment, organizational dysfunction, and professional bridges being napalmed in real time on social media. And caught in the middle of all this chaos, a young quarterback prospect named Shedeur Sanders, who's watching this dumpster fire from Colorado and probably thanking his lucky stars. He's got another year before he has to deal with the NFL draft. Let me paint the full picture for you, because this story has layers like you wouldn't believe. The tweet that started World War III? About 15 minutes ago, and I'm talking fresh off the presses here, Baker Mayfield decided to absolutely torch his former head coach Kevin Stefanski on Twitter. And I'm not talking about some subtle shade or a passive-aggressive comment. This was a full-on, no-holds-barred, scorched-earth tactical strike. Here's what happened. Orlando Ledbetter, a sports reporter who covers the Atlanta Falcons, sent out a tweet commenting on Kevin Stefanski's new gig with the Falcons. In his tweet, Ledbetter wrote that Stefanski had a dumpster fire at quarterback in Cleveland, and that both Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson failed, which supposedly started a chain reaction leading to 11 different starting quarterbacks cycling through Cleveland. Now, most NFL players, especially quarterbacks who are supposed to be leaders and maintain a certain level of professionalism, would probably see that tweet, maybe get a little annoyed, but ultimately let it slide. After all, engaging in public feuds with reporters and former coaches isn't exactly the kind of thing that screams mature professional athlete, but Baker Mayfield? Oh no, not Baker. This dude saw that tweet and decided today was the day he was going to let everyone know exactly how he feels about his time in Cleveland and his relationship with Kevin Stefanski. Baker, quote, tweeted Ledbetter's post and fired back. Failed is quite the reach, pal. Still waiting on a text or call from him after I got shipped off like a piece of garbage. Can't wait to see you twice a year, coach. Let that sink in for a moment. Shipped off like a piece of garbage. Those aren't just words you throw around casually. That's a quarterback publicly calling out his former head coach for treating him without respect, without dignity, and without even the basic courtesy of a phone call or text message when the organization decided to move on from him. And that final line, "Can't wait to see you twice a year, coach." That's Baker essentially saying, "I'm coming for you. Every time we play, I'm going to make you regret how you treated me." It's bulletin board material on steroids. It's a vendetta being declared in 280 characters. The backstory. How we got here, to really understand why this tweet is so explosive, we need to rewind the clock a bit and talk about the relationship between Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski during their time together in Cleveland. When Stefanski took the Cleveland Browns head coaching job back in 2020, Baker Mayfield was already established as the team's starting quarterback. Baker had been the first overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, coming in with tons of swagger, confidence, and the belief that he was going to be the guy who finally turned around one of the NFL's most cursed franchises. Their first season together in 2020 actually went pretty well, all things considered. The Browns went 11-5, made the playoffs, and, here's the kicker, actually won a playoff game. In Cleveland, that's basically the equivalent of winning the Super Bowl. The city went absolutely crazy. For the first time in forever, Browns fans had hope. They had a young quarterback who seemed to be developing, a head coach who appeared to have things figured out, and momentum heading into the future. But then the 2021 season happened, and everything started falling apart. Baker and Stefanski went just 6-8 together. The team missed the playoffs entirely. There were rumors of tension in the building, questions about whether Baker was really the long-term answer at quarterback, and general dysfunction that seemed to permeate the entire organization. And then came the 2022 offseason, which was one of the wildest, most controversial periods in recent NFL history for the Browns. The organization decided they were moving on from Baker Mayfield, and they went all in on trading for Deshaun Watson, a quarterback who came with massive legal baggage, serious allegations, and a ton of questions about whether he should even be playing in the NFL. The Browns gave up 3 first-round picks for Watson and signed him to a fully guaranteed $230 million contract. It was a massive gamble, a huge investment, and a clear signal that they believed Watson was their franchise quarterback of the future. And Baker? He got shipped out to Carolina, then eventually found his way to Tampa Bay, where he's actually been playing pretty solid football and reminding everyone why he was the first overall pick in the first place. The radio show bombshell now, here's where this story takes an even crazier turn. Because while Baker's tweet was already creating waves across social media, a local Cleveland radio show was discussing the situation, and one of the hosts dropped an absolutely devastating piece of insider information that explains a whole lot about why Baker's no longer with the Browns. The host said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "You want to know why Baker Mayfield isn't a Cleveland Brown anymore? Because he was rude to everyone in that building. I witnessed it with my own eyes. He told a vice president of the organization to go bleep himself right in front of me. Let me repeat that because it's important. Baker Mayfield allegedly told a Cleveland Browns vice president, a high-ranking executive in the organization, to essentially kick rocks, and he did it in front of witnesses, in the middle of the facility, where everyone could see and hear." The host continued, "That'll get you escorted out pretty quickly. You say that in any work environment to anybody, and you're fired. That's insubordination. That's disrespect." And honestly, he's got a point. In any normal workplace, if you told your VP to go bleep himself, security would be walking you out the door before you could even pack your desk. You'd be blacklisted from the industry. Your career would be over. But the quarterback position has always been different, hasn't it? These guys get away with behavior that would get normal employees fired on the spot. They have leverage that other people don't have. They're treated differently because the position is so important, so valuable, so difficult to fill with genuine talent. Still, even with all the leeway quarterbacks typically get, there's a line. And according to this radio host, Baker crossed it in a major way. The host then made another excellent point. If you're going to talk to a VP like that, how are you treating the equipment manager? How are you treating the janitor who's cleaning up after you? How are you treating the people who have no power, no influence, and are just trying to do their jobs and support you? That's a brutal but fair question, because if you're showing that level of disrespect to leadership, it probably means you're not exactly treating the lower level staff with kindness and appreciation either. And that creates a toxic environment in the building. The host admitted he used to defend Baker. He liked the guy. He believed in him. He wanted him to succeed. But after seeing tonight's tweet and thinking about all the behind-the-scenes behavior, he said, "Baker lost me tonight. That was it. I can't defend him anymore." Why this matters for Shedeur Sanders. Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about Shedeur Sanders in the middle of all this Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski drama? What does any of this have to do with a college quarterback at Colorado? Everything. It has everything to do with him. Shedeur Sanders is one of the top quarterback prospects for the upcoming NFL draft. He's got elite tape from his time at Colorado. He's been coached by his father, Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes and most media-savvy figures in sports history. Deion has taught Shedeur how to handle pressure, how to navigate controversy, how to be professional even when people are coming at you. Shedeur is exactly the kind of quarterback prospect that teams dream about landing. He's got talent, poise, leadership ability, and a support system that most rookies could only dream of having. And right now, he's sitting in Boulder, Colorado, watching the Cleveland Browns organization implode in the most public, embarrassing way possible. Think about what Shedeur is seeing. Former quarterbacks publicly tweeting about being treated like garbage by the organization. Radio hosts revealing stories about players cursing out executives in the facility. A coaching search that's falling apart before our eyes, drama, dysfunction, and chaos at every single level of the organization. Now put yourself in Shedeur's shoes. You've worked your entire life to get to the NFL. You've dominated at the college level, you've got scouts drooling over your arm talent and decision-making ability, and you're watching teams like Cleveland turn into reality TV shows. Would you want to go there? Would you want to hitch your professional career, your entire future, to an organization that treats people like this? An organization that can't seem to get out of its own way? Of Of course not. Nobody would. And that's the real tragedy here. Because Cleveland is almost certainly going to be picking high in the upcoming draft, they're going to have an opportunity to select a franchise quarterback, potentially Shedeur himself. But why would any elite quarterback prospect want to go to Cleveland after watching all this unfold? The coaching search disaster. Speaking of organizational dysfunction, let's talk about Cleveland's current coaching search, because it's somehow becoming an even bigger mess than the Baker Mayfield situation. Kevin Stefanski is gone, having taken the head coaching job with the Atlanta Falcons. So Cleveland needs to find a new head coach. Pretty straightforward, right? Teams do this all the time, except nothing is ever straightforward with the Browns. Just today, Mike McDaniel, the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator and one of the hottest coaching candidates in the NFL, withdrew his name from consideration for the Cleveland job. He was one of their final 6 candidates, had a second interview scheduled for tomorrow, and just pulled out. Now, why would an established offensive mind like McDaniel walk away from a head coaching opportunity? These jobs don't grow on trees. There are only 32 NFL head coaching positions in the entire world. Coaches spend their entire careers trying to land one of these gigs. One of the radio hosts had a theory that makes a ton of sense. My initial thought is McDaniel was asking for more control than the Browns were willing to give him. When you're talking about guys who are established, guys like him and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, these are offensive minds that everyone's trying to hire. They want control over the roster, input on draft picks, the ability to build the team their way. Translation: McDaniel probably walked into his interview and said, "Listen, if I'm going to come to Cleveland and fix this mess, I need real power. I need to be involved in personnel decisions. I need to have a say in who we draft, who we sign, how we build this roster." And Cleveland probably said, "Thanks, but no thanks. We'll keep the power structure the way it is." So McDaniel walked. And honestly, can you blame him? Why would you take a job where you don't have the authority to actually fix the problems? But here's why this matters for Shedeur Sanders. Mike McDaniel is exactly the kind of coach you'd want developing a young quarterback. His offensive system is proven, his track record with QBs is solid. His ability to create scheming advantages that make quarterbacks look better is elite level. If you're Shedeur and you see that Cleveland couldn't even keep McDaniel interested enough to finish the interview process, what does that tell you about the organization? It tells you they're not serious about building a winning culture. It tells you they're not willing to give coaches the tools they need to succeed. It tells you this is still the same old Browns making the same old mistakes, the Rooney Rule complication. But wait, there's more. Because of course, there is. Now Cleveland has another problem to deal with, the Rooney Rule. For those who don't follow NFL hiring practices closely, the Rooney Rule is a league policy that requires teams to interview at least 2 minority candidates for head coaching positions before they can make a hire. It's designed to create opportunities and ensure teams aren't just rubber stamping their preferred candidate without considering diverse talent. Here's Cleveland's problem. Mike McDaniel was one of their minority candidates for the Rooney Rule. Now that he's withdrawn, they only have 1 minority candidate left in their final 6, Nate Shellhouse, the Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator.